Hello, welcome to Axiom Flux on the 6th of December 2015. We've got myself, PJ, Stav, Ron and Jeana joining us. How are we all doing?
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, fine.
Evening PJ, evening Jeana and evening Ron.
Okay, Stav, we'll start with you. We'll let you show us what you've got.
Okay, what a week. Lots of things in the news, and basically I'm just going to cover some informational news, whatever you want to call it, that's been doing the rounds actually for 6, 7, 8 months to those in the know or alternative media. Excuse me, which is about this oil business and the ISIS selling the oil to who, and where's it going, and where's it going through. So I'll start you off on an article here, which is Britain's secret ties to governments, firms behind ISIS oil sales. It's by Nafiz Ahmed. I could have picked 1,000 different articles, but we stuck with this one. So this exclusive published by Israel Intelligence and blah, Investigate Journalist Project, etc. The story was originally commissioned by London's Middle East Eye. Okay, in the scramble to access Kurdistan's oil and gas wealth, the US and UK are turning a blind eye to the complicity in Islamic State oil smuggling. Key allies in the US and UK-led war on Islamic State, ISIS, are covertly financing the terrorist movement, according to senior political sources in the region. US and British oil companies are heavily invested in the murky geopolitical triangle sustaining ISIS black market oil sales. The Kurdish regional government, KRG, in Iraq and Turkish military intelligence both supported secret ISIS oil smuggling operations and even supplied arms to the terror group, according to the Kurdish, Iraqi and Turkish officials. One British oil company in particular, Jeana Energy, is contracted by the KRG to supply oil for a major Kurdish firm accused of facilitating ISIS oil sales to Turkey. The Kurdish firm has close ties to the Iraqi Kurdish government. Jeana operates in the KRG with the backing of the British government and is also linked to the rest of this article and the complexities that are involved. But I think you'll get the main picture of what this article's about. And like I say, I've got a few other articles that go with it. Basically, you know, if you're not in the know of what's going on, I'd suggest you read the rest of this article. It's in Insurgent Intelligence, and there's plenty of other articles on the internet about it. If you're not aware of what's going on with illegal, is that a word that means anything anymore? Unlawful or lawful, does that mean anything anymore? I don't think it does. Although countries like Russia and Iran certainly try to live by the legal side of things when it comes to interfering with international matters with other countries. So as we probably know, that Russia is probably the only legal country that's in this whole mess out there, because it was invited by a democratically elected Syrian government. So there we go. What I'll do is I'll just move on to the next article, and then I'll open it up to see what you guys have got to say about it. So Jeana is the company that these are referring to, Jeana Energy. So who are Jeana Energy? Who we are? This is the company that's surrounded in this, or should we say one of the companies, because I'm pretty sure there's other companies involved. Jeana Energy is the largest oil producer and holder of reserves and resources in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, where we have been operating for over a decade through the Miran and Bina Bari gas fields. Jeana is set to be a cornerstone provider of gas to Turkey under the KRI Turkey gas sales agreement. I mean, I won't read the rest of it. Again, you can go and check these out, because I think it's all about us all individually doing our own thing and checking these stories. You must look yourself and make your own minds up. But let's have a little click here. Look, board of directors. Let's see who's the directors particular company. Load it up. Now here's the guys. One of these two spring to mind straight away. You know, there's the obvious one, which is this chap down here, Nathan Rothschild. Yeah, Honourable Nathan Rothschild. Well, if you're in the alternative movement, or not movement, but you know, follow alternative news and articles and things, you know all about the Rothschild. So at least said that in the better, because you should really all know about him or his family and his history. But this chap here is interesting. He was the first guy I looked at. I thought, oh no. But Tony Hayward, if you're not aware, was the chap who was in control of the Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, and he was in charge. He was in charge of BP at the time. And anyway, he left. And there's plenty of videos of him on there explaining how sorry he was, and he was going to clean the mess up. It wasn't going to cost the American government any more money. It wasn't going to do any damage to the economies around the area, which was a load of old lies, as we know how it all turned out. And I think he's rather a pathetic bloke, to be honest, a pathetic man, because I think one of the YouTube videos I saw of him, if I remember rightly, he was almost crying like a baby, and he said at the end of the video, "Oh, I want my life back." Well, he's come back in the back door into these type of deeds, shall we say, and he's back into the oil business, but he's back in through the back door, and he's with some pretty seedy guys with seedy companies. So, I mean, there's another guy here, Sir Graham Hearn. I mean, a quick resume on what he's done. I mean, you can read all this, all the corporations he's been. I mean, the last bit, Sir Graham, well, actually, one of the ones which we now need to make a link with is pretty obvious. He was an executive director of NM Rothschild and Sons Limited. Look at his grinning face. Anyway, Sir Graham was appointed commander of the most excellent order of the British Empire in 1990, and a Knight Bachelor in 1998. Yeah, well, I wonder why. But anyway, but on that alone, you know, these people, if you go and check these individually, you'll find a right hornet's nest with most of them. So, but what I will do is I should just go to here on my next article, and there's a chap here. This chap is a Tory MP. He's in government at the moment. He's quite an important MP. His name is Nadim Zahawi. Now, he is the MP for Stratford-upon-Avon since 2010. Now, this guy, you know, he's a Iraqi-born, I think, of Kurdish parents, and I think he fled when he was a kid during the Saddam Hussein regime. But I mean, I don't really want to read the whole article, but basically if I go down to the important bits down here, if I can find it, come to it in a minute, hopefully. So about his shares in the company, there we are. It goes on to say here, the latest register of members' interest states, this is just basically where he had to declare he had certain interests in this company and whatever. But basically, I mean, if I cut all that out, the latest register of members' interest states that Mr. Zahawi received £6,127 from KRG to cover the cost of a return flight to Kurdistan in January as part of a trade mission led by none other than Boris Johnson, the Mayor of London. We won't go too much into that, but the important thing is here, Mr. Zahawi also owns shares in Jeana Energy and another Kurdish oil explorer, according to the registrar. On Monday, Jeana announced that Tony Hayward, that's the guy I was talking to, former BP boss, there you go, was moving from the role of Jeana's chief executive to become the chairman. This chap, actually, doesn't say here in other articles, which I won't pull up, he's a major shareholder in Jeana Energy. Now, the other thing is he's also on a select committee for the government about the businesses that what he's in, basically. So he gets to influence the Prime Minister about the wheres and whys of contracts and bits and pieces. So, you know, I don't really need to go too much into that. You can make your own links with it. Also, I'll just move on to say a little bit of history about Jeana. Okay. They were formerly a company known as Valaris, yeah. Well, in 2011, they merged with Jeana Energy, but they just didn't merger. They actually, as it says here, if you look, it says proposed to be renamed. So Valaris is no more, and they renamed themselves Jeana Energy PLC. But if you look here, Valaris is incorporated in no other place less than Jersey, with a registration number, tax haven Jersey. So, you know, these guys, they don't even, and no taxes get paid at all back into the country, because, you know, it's all offshore, as we all suspect. And there's another company here. Right, it doesn't stop at Jeana. I mean, there's probably many more. Here's another link to a company with Jeana. This is a company called DNO, Oslo, further. DNO SA, the Norwegian oil and gas operator, today confirmed receipt of $30 million to be shared pro rata with its partner, Jeana Energy. So there you are. PLC has a partial payment towards oil exported from the Torquay field by the Kurdistan regional government. The payment is the third such monthly payment received in 2015. So they've had two more payments before that this year of $30 million, which they're going to split with Jeana. So, I mean, how far does a rabbit hole go on these companies? And I'm sure there's many other companies that are, you know, split up into these again, and maybe you may come to a dead end with some of it, and that's where all the money gets siphoned off. But again, that's another story. But there's some links there and articles, you know, to give some ideas of what all this is all about, who's behind it really, who's financing it. It's pretty obvious really. You just have to join a few dots. I could have been more in depth, you know, with other things and made it much more blatantly obvious, but I think you get the gist of it, and there you go. So I'll open the floor to any guys if you want to just, you know, to bring any points on that, then go ahead. What do you think, Peter?
Well, first that article you've got showing Nafiz Ahmed, he's a former Guardian editor, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Yeah, I've read a few of his while he was with him. Seems to be doing much improvements now. Next one, your Tory MP. Well, what can we say about him? I think he spoke a lot on, you know, Wednesday with Vote. He seemed to have had a lot to say.
Yes, he did. He interjected at least no less than 3 times. With
yeah, I witnessed at least 3 times. Yeah.
You know, and he he obviously had a lot to say about it because of his, dare I say, his own interests. But there you go.
Yep. Next one, we're DNO, I think.
Oh, this one here, yeah.
Yeah, DNO. Well, no, I didn't know, but thanks for that, Stav. Some good information there. Next one. Oh, you haven't got to your next one, have you?
So this one, what here? What registered?
Oh, yeah, Valais. Well, that's
Yeah,
self-explanatory, that really, isn't it?
Yeah, but they changed. At least they changed the name.
Did they go into liquidation or anything like that?
No. They just all they done was the Valais were bought over by Jeana Energy, but they weren't. They just incorporated them and they changed the name, but it's still registered there for obvious reasons.
Maybe Valais have got some stories. Might be interested to do a bit of research on them.
Yeah, you have to go back past 2011 for that because they don't exist after that. So, but there you go. Yeah, that's basically the ones I covered. I kind of skipped through them quite quickly because I would like to see what Jeana has to say and run on these things because I tend to hog things a bit. And, yeah, there you go. So, what do you need to say, Ron?
Well, I mean, like from my point of view, as you know, you've caught me on the hop tonight. I was very ill prepared for what was going down, but I spent a little bit of time just, you know, poking my nose into certain things. And as I mentioned to you before, I can't remember the name of the company right now, but they had something to do with Astra, the old Astra fireworks company. Who set up a business in the you know, oil and energy infrastructure, and it would appear that You know, they're involved in this as well, somewhere along the line. In fact, I mean, like, you know, when you weigh up the whole thing about what is going on out there, I mean, it obviously, from my own point of view, looks as though it's completely corporate run. You know, they're all in each other's pockets. I mean, you know, I think back, you know, a couple of years ago when reports were coming out about all the AK-47 ammo that was being bought up in the States, and it was creating a shortage worldwide of the ammunition. And it was only the other day I was thinking to myself, well, where did it all go? You know, I mean, like, where is it? You know, somebody is supplying ISIS with all the necessary tools that they need. You know, and you know, this is such a well-organised situation that is going on. You know, and my opinion of it is that it's, you know, Syria is going to be taken out one way or the other. I mean, basically now we've got the French and now the British in there, who don't seem to be doing a great deal. The other thing is we never seem to get any good reports on what's actually happening on the ground. And what is happening on the ground, from what I can make out, is that the Syrian forces, the government forces, are now having a lot of success. You know, and they're constantly now pushing ISIS back. You know, I was only reading reports today that you know, they're pushing ISIS further and further back along the Turkish borders, because this is where you know, the oil, you know, the moving pipeline, as Putin puts it, you know, is going in and out of Turkey. Of why the Turkish Prime Minister will not openly stand up and go, yes, it is happening here. You know, I mean, all the evidence is there now, you know, that you know, this moving oil line is directly going into Turkey. And there's been other issues also coming up about Turkish forces now appearing in you know, northern Iraq, supposedly to train you know, forces to fight ISIS, supposedly. But ISIS forces apparently are only 800 metres away from where the Turkish troops are based. Now, this all seems rather odd to me, you know, but yeah, there's some pretty big players in this game, you know, and there will be for some time yet. And Hal Cameron has turned around and said that, you know, this could turn into a long campaign lasting a couple of years. From what I've been finding out about what's happening on the ground as to what our own government is saying, I almost get the feeling that our own government wants to extend the problem within Syria to make this last as long as possible. But hey, what do I know?
Well, I think you on some good points there, Ron, because it was an article I was going to put it on tonight, but I thought, well, I don't want to get too bogged down with too many. It was that Serena Shimgirl journalist who was killed last year under very suspicious circumstances, allegedly, you know.
Oh, this is the girl in Turkey.
Yeah. Well, she was doing she was you know, she was working for Press TV at the time.
Yeah.
And she done it, and you can go to Press TV or any others, and you can see the whole story is 25 minutes. And she basically exposed all this last year, exactly all of this, what we talked, and more. And she was saying there's a base, El Tikriti or Tikriti in Turkey, which is an American Air Force base, or is used by the American Air Force. And she said that the arms were coming through that base, or being flown in through that base, by 2 Americans and 1 Mexican. Apparently these 3 guys or something, and they were also tied in with the Erdogan family, apparently.
This sounds very CIA, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It makes what?
Start joining the dots, as you say, a Mexican, an American influence in that part of the country, you know, the cartel groups linked to the drug market in Mexico coming through to the States, you know, drugs for guns. Of course, then you've got Turkey itself. I mean, because I say this is a very, very big thing that's happening. I mean, like, what's the main route out of Afghanistan for the opium supplies? It's Turkey. Turkey is open to all the opium and the heroin that comes out of Afghanistan. Another kind of odd scenario there, isn't it? There we are with, you know, Western troops based in Afghanistan walking through the poppy fields instead of setting fire to them. You know, something isn't quite right there, you know, and this is all about big business, big money. You know, I've actually read an interesting article recently where in the States, I can't remember for the life of me, but there's a drug that's been available on the market, you know, through pharmacies and prescribed, you know, through doctors, but it's an opiate-based drug, you know, and it's being prescribed more and more and more. Well, I never knew that the States grew vast quantities of, you know, opium poppies, so this stuff must be coming in, you know, via another source, you know, but they're saying this particular drug is actually extremely dangerous and it's causing lots of ill and bad side effects to the people.
Would it be codeine?
Sorry?
Would that be codeine?
No.
No, it's
It's very much along the lines of the ecstasy, isn't it, Ron?
yeah, we see now, you know, again, you just touched on something else. I mean, like, which I find a little bit odd, but again, I saw a report where Turkish troops had stopped a shipment of 11 million. Again, it's a speed or amphetamine-based drug like ecstasy.
Yeah.
Stopped at the border. Then you've recently had the Saudi Arabian prince that had 2 tons of this stuff on his, you know, private jet. Now, come on. I mean, like, if we're sitting here and we know that, who and where is it coming from? Who is supplying it? I mean, we're talking about vast amounts of drugs that, you know, is there a pharmaceutical company mixed up in this along the line somewhere? I mean, because basically all what's happening is, I mean, like, you know, these are pet pills for the Islamic fighters to keep them going.
Yeah, well, there's something else. It's the CIA drug, they call it.
Oh, right.
It's from Colombia, and it comes from what they call the borrachero tree, right? They call it devil's breath, and it's a drug that the CIA have used over the decades. This thing is so powerful, right, that you can get anybody to do the hell what you like once they've ingested it, and it can be easily ingested through through the air. Literally, you just have to breathe this stuff in, which is like a powder. And you can get people to commit murder and do all sorts of things on it. And you ought to check it out. It's called Devil's Breath, borrachero tree in Colombia. Yeah. Now, I'm thinking that, you know, maybe it's just not the weapons that come through that airport. Maybe it's other things, like that CIA drug, Devil's Breath. I mean, there's the Mexican, it's not Colombian, but it's not far from it. So, bit of a long dot to join, but that Devil's Breath stuff exists. It's a long known drug that the CIA have used for many decades, and it's amphetamine based stuff, and you know, ecstasy. Yeah. That ain't got a touch on that stuff. That is the known drug. I want to see if I can bring Jeana in. She might know a little bit what I'm talking about on this, but see if she wants to comment on anything we've covered so far. Hey there, Jeana.
Hello, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. I can only say that I'm glad when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, my first husband was dealing drugs, because the political arena in the world at large is really kind of run by illegal activities, and I think one of the guys was saying earlier how is lawlessness. Is there such a thing as law? And I think not. Over here in the States, there's a drug called Oxycontin, which I think is the drug that he was alluding to about the morphine base. Also, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that opium is at a 100% production rate right now in Afghanistan. You don't have to go very far back into the 80s to remember the Iran-Contra affair when Reagan was running drugs, Oliver North and the hearings, and the fact that, you know, the first husband, we knew the police were distributing the drugs, you know, and what's so funny about America is that the people who are voting and pledging allegiance and going to church every Sunday, they really have no clue what's going on. And as for myself, I mean, your listeners, I know they don't know me. I kind of wish I'd have put something else besides, I've never been on a Hangout, and that's my picture on my email, but, when I joined politics, I hadn't voted for 32 years. I got involved as an organizer, and I saw many, many things in the 8 years that I was organizing in different cycles, political cycles, and things like that. The only thing I can allude it to is drug dealing or, you know, living on the streets. And one of the things that I can say about loyalty is, you know, I read something that the Iraqis were saying that the Americans were dropping water to ISIS, and that if they would just stop dropping H2O to them, that they could defeat ISIS pretty quickly. And then, you know, the turnaround on that was that, oh, these guys can't ID the helicopters dropping the water, and they don't know what they're talking about, and those guys are lying. And so over here in America, it's very hard to ever get a source of information that is credible. But then again, you have a certain base of people who, you know, the L on the forehead doesn't mean loser, it means loyalty. And a word means exactly what you say it means, and I'm glad to see those articles that were shared, because when he showed the board of directors at Jeana, the very first one that popped out at me was Tony Hayward, of course, living in Georgia and on the Gulf of Mexico in that horrible BP spill. I mean, I didn't even get past his picture, and I was like stuck. It's just amazing to me how these guys can commit these kind of crimes against not only humanity but our earth, our land, our people as a whole. Forget, you know, nationalities or countries, just that these people can get away with this kind of bullshit and profit from it. And, you know, just like he was saying, you have to dig for this information, and it's the same here. You can find this information if you know what you're looking for. And it was something I stumbled upon today. I don't know if you guys have something called Craigslist. Do y'all have a Craigslist over there?
No, I can't say I've heard of that.
Craigslist, it's CRAIGSLIST.com. It's just, and I'll share it in the chat right quick. It's a place where you want to go sell something or you want to rent something. And my daughter the other day said, Mom, you should go. They have a thing called rants and raves. And so when I was in the community area, because you can pick your country, it's a worldwide, it's like an online advertisement if you want to rent or sell or buy. But it had a community area, and then it had a political area, and then it had about the Federal Reserve cartel. I thought, holy shit. You know, here on Craigslist, someone's posting, and I'm promising you, it seems to me as an organizer that the information is coming from sources that want people to wake up. They just want to shake them, because, you know, we have to go into well, I call what I've heard is described as a political systems change, and we can call it a global economy or global government or whatever we want to call it. We have to get there. I mean, it's going to happen. It has already happened on paper or through the electronics. You know, getting the American people there and talking about the amount of arms that were being bought up back in the day. It's not a joke that Turkey is involved in all of this. I didn't vote for 32 years, not because I was apathetic or any of that kind of stuff, but my great-grandfather and grandfather were involved in a lot of things, labor fights, and my great-grandfather fought at it was the largest civil uprising other than the United States Civil War. It was called the Battle for Blair Mountain. So I learned a lot about overt stuff that the government can do at a very young age. So I was always questioning and suspicious of anything. And of course, you know, when the Iran-Contra affair went, this is like someone on Facebook saying, oh, the CIA would never do this. Well, hey, go back to 1980. You know, you don't have to go back very far. But going back to that article on Craigslist, it was amazing to me that someone took the time to spell it all out. The Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, and then it broke it down into the oil. And then it broke it down further into the food and pharmaceuticals. So I linked it. It's a very good article because it does draw a line. But the thing I like to say to people is that we as common people, a lot of us, we don't have an intergenerational plan to understand this. Whereas one of your shows, you were talking about the Fabian Society. And they have these intergenerational plans, and they move very, very slowly. So as our children and the children's children are born into these systems of operation, they don't know to question. They do not understand the methodology that these people are using, which I call to get cattle through the gap. But I think that they do not have to do it in such a brutal fashion. You know, and this is the trick that they've pulled on the American people, because behind the petrodollar, of course, we are the military arm. And in that article on this Craigslist, there it was, you know, a lot of information about how they're operating in the hidden hand behind government. And, you know, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how it's going to happen. But shows like you guys are doing are so vital and important to people like us here in America who are very heavily propagandized. We don't have good sources of information, and I really appreciate how you detail what these groups are doing and how they're doing it. And there's plenty of us here that we know our government's behind ISIS, and then, of course, you have your folks that do not believe that, and, you know, that makes for not a very good Thanksgiving or holiday dinner. But anyway, I appreciate y'all bringing me on the show, because I think it's important for people in all countries to understand that there are people like us that are trying to piece it and put it together, and we're tired of this crimes against humanity is a good word for it. That's the way I see it. I just, you know.
Well, thanks for coming on, Jeana, because it's really difficult to get people to come on. It's the Axiom is all about. I mean, I should really leave it up to PJ. It's his brainchild, if you want to call it that. It's a platform for people, and you can just do a Google Hangout through the Axiom and just put it on the YouTube. It's for people like yourself and Ron and anybody else. And we have a lot of trouble to get people to come in to you know, just talk what it's about and what they find. If they find anything, you know, get it out there, because at the end of the day, it's about people being bothered to do it. And a lot of people say, well, I've got, you know, leave me alone, I'm okay, I just want to live my little quiet, peaceful life. Well, you can't do. You are involved. You are the future. If you say nothing, you affect the future. So you can't dip, nobody can dip out of this. Nobody can say, well, in my thoughts are that nobody can. Some people may want to, you know, argue that point. But I feel that you, even if you say nothing, you are part of the future, because that, you know, it's about us and how we steer things. They may have all of the big levers, all these governments, like you're saying, with Craigslist, putting things out there. I feel that sometimes, like yourself, Jeana, that they're shaking us and saying, for crying out loud, wake up, you know. But they are still going to steer this this ship, you know. Part of the shape me and PJ have sometimes, you know. But they will still be the big levers. But you know, everybody's got an opportunity, because to be able to, you know, to change things. And I don't think, you see, the thing is, once you're awake to these things and you start realising, you start delving into things, and you go, you know, one after the other, wow, you know, I didn't think whatever, but now I'm at the stage where anything's possible and everything is rigged. Everything is fixed, everything is rigged. There isn't nothing that isn't it when you're dealing with world governments. Everything is rigged, and that's, so I've gotten over that first hurdle, which took a couple of 2 or 3 years to get over. So basically, we have to put things out, but we are still a very small minority, Jeana. This is one thing I do forget, and I do believe this. I do believe we are still rather small that are aware of what's going on and expanding our knowledge into what's going on. So yeah, and it's something that we've got to keep on doing, because I don't think you have a choice. Because like I say, you do affect future even if you do nothing. So you're in it, and so we might as well make use of it and expose these things and see how it goes. I'd rather do this than do nothing anyway. What do you reckon, PJ?
I think you've explained it pretty much. Yeah. I mean, there were a few others who started this off, Axiom, but one of them's not with us anymore, and other one, you know, walked away. So it would be nice, you know, for more people to come along and, you know, voice what they've got to voice and share what they've got to share. But like you said, Stav, there's no getting out of it, really.
I tend to think that things could be changing. I was saying to Stav earlier on, you know, that every now and then I pop onto one of the daily papers forums, and you know, I was saying about like what was going on in the Ukraine a couple of years ago. I mean, that seems to have gone quiet, but you know, it's obviously going to lift off again there soon. I mean, even the Ukrainians are selling rockets to Qatar and the Saudis to supply to ISIS. You know, there's a lot of players in this, you know, but you know, sometimes I switch up and go away from it, you know, and you know, every now and then I'll dip back in there and see what's going on. And just recently I've noticed that there are more and more people actually wising up to what's going on. The form of comments now that are being left are turning round. You know, it's like, you know, the only way I can explain it is like, you know, if you've got a tree in winter and you're just looking at that tree as it is, walk away from it and go and look at it in the summer. It starts to fill up with leaves. And that's the kind of impression that I've been getting with what's going on some of these forums. It's no longer that same old tree what it looked like in the winter. Now it's growing and blossoming. Yeah. You know, and, well said, you can tell that by, you know, the overall comments that are being left. You know, especially with what's going on in Syria. You know, I mean, people are really starting to question things now and saying, well, hang on a minute, what about the legal aspects? You know, we got no right to be flying over a sovereign nation. You know, because I mean, you just roll it back, you know, to Libya. You know, who the hell, you know, has said you could just fly in and bomb this country, but you know, bomb it back to the Stone Age or whatever it was. You know, I mean, who do these people actually think they are? You know, Well, all these people are people who think they're above international law and the laws that have been drawn up. You know, they'll stomp on anybody's face. And now people are starting to go, whoa, hang on a minute. You can't keep doing that. You know, and I am actually sensing that there is a change. It's like when I sometimes chat to people just on the things that I understand in life. You know, I mean, like, you know, I was chatting to a guy the other week and, you know, we were talking about, like, you know, the Nazis, Hitler, you know, and, you know, things concerning the Second World War, you know, and I said, well, isn't it strange, you know, I mean, like, you know, to the victors, you know, they can write the history. And I said to the guy, but, you know, I suppose you're aware that in 1933, before Hitler actually come into power, that the Worldwide Jewish Organisation declared war on Germany. And he went, well, I never knew that. I said, no, because it's being written out of history. He went, well, I never even knew it. I said, well, there you go. You know, you've only been taught the same as what I have, you know, how we won the war and, you know, when I went on to explain that right up until 1940.
Yeah, well, Ron, you've got to remember when you say the Jewish, it's the Zionists. You have to.
No, yeah, the Zionists.
You know,
sorry, yeah.
If you look, I think we're all okay with where the Zionists originated from and how they came about, and you know, nothing could be further from to say that they're Jewish. If you want to look on it as a you know, we tend to forget as well that the Palestinians are more associated with the true Jews of Palestine because their DNA matches them more closer than the Ashkenazis, you know, so I mean, like, there you go. There are all these geopolitical, you know, movements, whatever you want to call them, and these are the people who do these things and change the world. I mean, my dad said, you know, if you got rid of religion and politics, the world would be a much better place. And I don't think anybody can disagree with that. So, yeah, but I know what you're saying, Ron. There's a lot. See, the thing is, if you get rid of it's getting rid of the doctrine, and that takes a lot of hard work for a lot of people, and they're all different. You know, people say, well, I don't want to look into the National Socialist movement, which was Nazism. I can't handle that. He was a wicked man, and the gas chambers and all that business. So some people don't want to look at that because the doctrine's so heavy on their head, right, that they don't go and search for the real truth about it all. I'm not saying they're bad, not saying they're good. Go and research it, look into the fine detail, what really happened, and you'll find on the internet there's oceans and oceans of stuff by eyewitnesses from the German side and from the Russians. Well, the Germans like to call the Russians the Bolsheviks for obvious reasons. If you looked into the Russian Revolution and the Bolsheviks and who, you know, supported them and where they were financed from, there's a lot of history a lot of people have got to take in and join all the dots as well before sort of taking one dot from there and trying to join it 50 years later without going in between. It takes a lot of research and a lot of and also getting over the doctrine or getting through the doctrine, because to a lot of people it's very difficult because everything's been so stigmatized by nastiness, and people will go, well, no, I know he's a bad man. What you told at school? Did you read the school books about it? Yeah, well, yeah, well, you've got to get past that. And that takes a lot for a lot of people. Some of us it's more easier than others. But you're absolutely right, Ron, and that's what people have got to do, is go back through the history, but don't. You've been taught the academical side of it because you know that's your doctrine. You don't need to go through that anymore. You don't need to cross-examine that. That's heavily indoctrinated into your mind. But what you need to do now is go on the opposite side of thinking, and then go and go and educate yourself against that all over that period. I only got involved with that because my parents fought in that war, the World War II. So I felt I had to do some type of just not justice, but I felt that I had to go and look at that more carefully, for, you know, for my father's sake, who's been long gone, and my mother had gone decades ago. But I felt that I had to, you know, do that for my father, to find out myself why he went into war and lost many friends, family, relatives, and whatever. He was one of the lucky ones to come back. So my mum, and hence I'm here for that. But you know, these things all have to. They all take time, Ron, as you know, and you're finding out, and I'm sure Jeana is, and I'm sure PJ. I think we all are. So yes, I didn't want to. Let me bring Jeana in, see what you've got to say about.
Well, I was going to share that my great-grandfather, I would get to see him during holidays, and I was just little, 5, 6, 7 years old. He used to come behind me and scare me, and he would say, "Corporate master's going to get you. Corporate master will get you." And I used to ask him, "Well, Papa, who is corporate master?" And he would say, "Well, it might be your school teacher down there in Florida." Because, see, we moved away from home when I was 5. And then he might say, "Well, it's your preacher at the church. That's your corporate master." And I can remember he died when I was 20. So I was blessed to hear, you know, firsthand stories of him organizing on the creek. And I think also the fact that when I was growing up, I would look at the college professor and I'd think, "Are you my corporate master?" Any job I had, my boss, "Are you my corporate master?" Because corporate master is a facade. Corporate master, and I appreciate the way my people taught me about these things, because they had to work in covert ways to bring unions into the coal mining area of West Virginia. And that's what people have to do today. We have to work in covert ways, to find out the truth, to find this stuff, and then we have to also speak the truth to people that are willing to hear it. You know, like he was saying about the leaves on the tree, this is true, but unless you have the heart or the backbone to question authority, some people are just going to blindly go along. You know, I hope that people will understand that, you know, like myself, I was not politically active until Obama ran, and I like to think I drank the Kool-Aid for a minute. And the picture that you see, I'm actually at the Democratic National Convention in 2012. I was elected to go as an at-large delegate. And I want to share that the delegates get invited to a list of all kind of things that we can go visit and do. And I noticed that Turkey had an invitation to any delegate to call, and you could come to this private dinner. And of course, you know, they're courting delegates. And I was a newcomer. You know, I was more like a grassroots, and I'm still a grassroots organizer, is what I like to call myself, because I don't have corporate master and I don't have any 501c 3 or 4. I don't have any of that kind of stuff on paper. But anyway, when I got there, it was funny because some of our house reps from our state one of the ladies actually asked me, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what am I doing here?" It was an open invitation. And so when I talked to the couple of the guys that were there organizing the event, you know, I was telling them that I was looking for grassroots, you know, interest in what I was doing. They told me, "Oh, we don't work with women. We don't, you know," and they were, I think, stunned, I guess, when I was telling them the kind of things that I was trying to do, because what I'm up against here in the South, and I wrote about it at the Daily Kos, KOS.com, Jeana Brown, is voter oppression and voter repression. There's such well, there's no real democracy here. It is a pimpocracy. I've heard it called that. That's why I'm no longer an elected official or work within the Democratic Party or do anything. I mean, I call it a courtesy call. I was there for 8 years. in and out for 4 as an elected official, a congressional chair over some counties. But what happened here in America is you had elected a black president, and then you had a lot of black folks wanting to run for office. Well, here in Georgia, we had a group called the Quitman 10+2, Q-U-I-T-T-M-A-N. And you can Google this group over in rural Georgia, and you will find out that when they got busted for voter fraud, they sent in 5 different military type enforcement. They sent in the Secretary of State, they sent in the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, they sent in the county sheriff, the local city police, and there was another one. But as the people were being arrested, they were in, these black folks, they were like, well, and this was one of my counties that I was actually over. They were like, well, what am I being arrested for? Voter fraud. Well, what happened is some black folks actually won an election, but the white folks couldn't deal with the fact that they'd lost a couple of school board seats and someone had possibly, legally won elections. But it took 4 years to clear these people's names. Many black folks that were 70, 80 years old will never vote again. It so reminded them of the 60s.
Oh, I think we've lost Jeana there.
Yeah, not surprised. She may come back.
Hopefully she does, because it was quite interesting what she was saying about the political setup and voting. Which is
well, while we wait for her to come back,
going off air when they're going to hit on something that could actually be quite politically sensitive. It's odd, isn't it?
Let's see.
Let me just show you this, because we did touch on this earlier, then we drifted off. Basically, talking about people getting caught for doing wrong things, and then you'll see them pop up in different places, which is what this one's all about. Nick Gargan. Reason why I'm showing this, Wikipedia asking for donations, is I'm not going to donate until they start updating things, because they've not put a mention on this. Former Chief Constable Nick Gargan joins G4S. You know what I mean? 2nd of December. So here we go. He would take up a 4-month role as Programme Director in the company's Justice Division. Wait a minute, what did he do? He was suspended in May 2014 due to inappropriate behaviour towards female police officers, and he resigned in his post in October of this year. And then, look how quick he's got a job. Not bad, eh? Well done, Nick Gargan.
Think back.
What can I say? What can you say? Well, I think most of these... we've got Jeana back. I think, hang on, Jeana. But this is where all the bad apples are going to go. This is where all the bad apples are going to go to once they squeeze down the numbers and the cuts to the police force. All the bad apples are going to go to G4S and all the rest of the security companies that are going to get the contracts for policing the street or policing whatever. So anyway, we've got Jeana back, I think. So, did you want to carry on where you left off, Jeana?
She's just muted herself.
Hey, I'm sorry. No, I just wanted to share that when we elected a black president over here, a lot of black folks thought they could run for office. And what people are finding out on the ground is that this system is not a representative system. And in rural areas, it's much more observable. And so when you see this repression or oppression on the ground, it's discouraging. But it's like you said, you invite people to Axiom Curb. They may or may not want to come. They may or may not want to be visible. But I think we're like the tip of an iceberg, that there are plenty of people under the surface that are understanding and seeing, and they are experiencing the brunt of these controlling entities that control not only the government here in the United States, but globally. And of course, we're speaking of the Honorable Rothschild and the bankers and the countries that facilitate the movement of arms and the things that we see pressing across the world. I think it's only going to get worse. Personally, here in this small county where I live, you know, they had veterans from the World War I monument, a little veterans, World War II, a few more people. They had the Vietnam War. They had the Korean War. And then I turned and they had a monument for the War on Terror. And there was one name, someone from this county must have died. But what astonished me is the fact it didn't say Gulf War. It didn't say Iraqi War. It said the War on Terror. And it had a beginning, but it had no end. And I think that is what we're up against. Is that they've got to push this petrodollar, they've got to keep this monetary system, they've got to use this war, invented war, to continue this system of carnage, and it's really, really sad because people are waking up. I mean, I don't know what people can do beside I would like to think plan an intergenerational poor folks plan, because the rich folks have an intergenerational plan, believe you me.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jeana. And what you were saying about the voting and the voting rigging on the grassroots, even though there was no voting rigging going on, they will come down on anything, or they will just do it anyway, to say to the general populace, you see, we don't tolerate vote rigging here. What it is that you're getting in on their game. They rig the top votes. I mean, I'm a political atheist, really. I don't believe in anything political. I don't think politics and politicians will be the answer to any of this. But that's a long story, which I'm prepared to go into an explanation at another time. But I don't think it could come through those megalomaniac, psychopathic, sociopathic minds, because they are like a different breed, and they are brought up and born and brought up to be like that. There's no doubt about it, because if you check their schooling, who they're from, whatever, it stands to reason, you know. So, I believe that they will have in whoever's next groomed to be him. It's like Obama was groomed. You know, Bushes were groomed, Clintons were groomed. You could go all the way back. They're all groomed to be in that position. Those people are handpicked to be put into that position, and it's no different over here, Jeana. It's no different at all. And so when people kid themselves with democracy and voting, I think they're just really, people are waking up that it's just one big joke. It really is, you know. And people say to me, look, well, what's the answer? And I say, well, if you really, really want a democracy, if you've got to have a democracy, and I don't go along with it totally myself, is as a direct democracy where the people make the policies. We have the technology today to do this. It will be fraudulent, it will have hiccups, of course, but the people make the policies. And you then hire an administration that only carry out what those policies are, right? And they have no legal or lawful mandates or anything to change them. They are just literally civil servants, and they are, you know, public servants, which is what they should be. Then perhaps there may be some future in that long down the line. It'll take, and if people don't get involved, then it's entirely their fault themselves. It would actually mean people being involved 7 days a week. But then, you know, people are quite willing to watch a TV soap opera 7 days a week. So, you know, I think that is possibly the only sort of democracy I would even contemplate entertaining in my mind. And I'm saying that won't be perfect. But if people must have a democracy, that's the only way. You know, some people say, well, you know, that's in some people's terms, anarchy or anarchism. Well, I don't know, you can call it what you like, and you know, words are words for me. I don't really care, but you know, I don't need a leader to tell me to get up in the morning. I don't need a leader to tell me to go and take a bath, shave, go off to do work, whatever it is. I don't need a leader to tell me to do those things. I don't need a leader to tell me to go about my work in a lawful way, you know, lawful contracts. I don't need a leader to tell me to do that. I certainly don't need a leader to tell me how to live my life. So so maybe we should be in control, as it's meant to be, if they call it a democracy. And at the end of the day, it's always going to be 51% get to eat or kill 49%, because that's the way democracies are run. So is it a great thing? Well, you know, I think what else is there if people want a democracy? So that's all I've got to say about democracy.
When you talk of democracy, and
well, I was going to say there was a little silver lining, but these women actually stuck it out for 4 years, and the state threw it back down to the local level. And I like to tell stories, and a story that I like to tell is about a big fish in a little pond. There's people that think, you know, the governor should call them, and I leave a message for the governor's people to call these local county big donors. And what I find out from someone is that these circles that the governor's in are so many circles above the local people. These local people that are code enforcement officers, law enforcement, your mayor, your city commissioner, these folks are so far down the totem pole, they have no clue. And even the governors of these states, they're so far down the totem pole, they have no clue. This is why democracy, and I agree, will never work. It will never work. And I do not know what will, but I do believe that people will find their own answers. We know our own answers. We don't need this system, and we certainly don't need the way that they're moderating this political system change, because it's inhumane. And you know, I've been encouraged and hearing a lot about women running for office, women doing this and that. But I tell you, it's a really sad thing when they call this ISIS thing. You know, the goddess Isis was a goddess. You know, so it's like, how are you ever going to get truth out and talk about matriarchy, or talk about love? Love for fellow man, and how we can do this out of love. You know yourself, we're on this in this show because we love our fellow man. We want to share this information with people so that we can enlighten them and bring them some hope. Because honestly, if even the local people that are so full of themselves, I say to people, we can't hate these people. They're a part of a system that has been set up the way it is, and so you cannot hate the roots of the tree. You will kill the tree. If you want the tree to have the leaves and to bloom, then you must also love the roots, these things that have come before. There's no sense in worrying about all and trying to get it all right or all figured out. But every day through right action and in the moment, do the next right thing. I mean, that's going to get us where we need to be.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think it's a process that's going to take a long time, and I don't know what's going to come at the end of it, but I think there are people waking up, and I did say earlier on that there's only a small majority. Well, I meant that as people who are putting their voice out there and putting blogs out there and this sort of thing. But the rest, what you say, are waking up, and they are being effective now, because a lot of people don't get involved until it lands on their doorstep, or they knock at the door, and all of a sudden, or something happens, they lose their job, and they're on benefits or entitlements, and then they get removed, and all of a sudden they're in the gutter, and they're scrapping around for food or whatever. Now all of a sudden they wake up pretty abruptly. So there is a tendency. It's nothing to be heard here. Move along. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think PJ was going to say something about the democracy. Were you, PJ?
Well, I were going to mention something what David Cameron mentioned when he were talking about this debate or vote being about how we deal with terrorism and not if we deal with it. Well, we're pretty much on here talking about similar stuff, so again, I'll use what he said and fire it back his way. It's not, you know, if we're going to start to do something, it's how do we go about it. So none of us really do have the answers, but it's a case of putting his, you know, minds together and figuring out a better way than what we've had. Unless you want to leave it up to King Cameron to deal with, which I'm sure you guys don't.
I've on several occasions now over the ISIS thing, you know, we know that there is a very deep plan that's been organised, you know, behind governments, and you know, I put a post up on a forum the other day. I said, look, you know, why doesn't Cameron find out who the 40 countries are, who are the individuals who are supplying the money, the arms, you know, the network that ISIS to exist. Cut the head off the snake to kill the body. That's all you got to do. But no, they just want to keep the industrial military complex running by bombing.
Exactly.
It's simple. It's that bloody simple, but nobody seems to want to go there.
Well, maybe, just maybe, he doesn't want to cut his own head off.
No, because exactly. You know, I mean, sorry to joke about this, but I mean, like when I first saw that man, you know, I was reminded of that snake in Jungle Book. You know, with them little beady round eyes going, trust in me. And I just thought, I don't like this guy. There's something, you know, deep rooted in my conscious soul that says I do not like this man, you know. And thus it's proven to be. I mean, like, you know, again, we were talking about this only recently. Well, I put a post up on one of your posts on Facebook, you know, doing with the fact that when he was 25 years old, he lost 3 nuclear warheads. I mean, come on. You know, and he's a rising star of the Tory party. Strangely, somewhere along the line, the Tory party was benefited by, what was it, 17.5 million by his actions? You know, I mean, like, you know, we've all been set up for years and years.
Did anybody notice on Wednesday, I'm sure you guys will have done, when Cameron were talking about not using the term ISIS anymore, basically, because it's, you know, it's disrespectful to Muslims and things like that. But I thought, wait a minute, it's took him this long to come up with that. I mean, the only logic to that is it, he knows people are now attaching it to the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service, so maybe that's his reason why he don't want us to use that term anymore, and he wants us to stick to using the Daesh. Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, because apparently it's supposed to be insulting to them. So you insult them, you inflame them all the more to want to attack us. Yeah. You know, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think Stav had a video to play.
Yeah, I did actually. I've got a couple of things. One more sort of. Let me just screen share. Full screen.
I'm not sure if Jeana's wanting to say something.
Go ahead, Jeana.
I was just going to say very briefly that I saw something the other day that said that it's possible there's a rift in Homeland Security and the CIA and the military-industrial complex, that there are some people that are questioning, you know, and I always look at things like Snowden coming forward and
Have we lost Jeana again?
Well, while we get Jeana back, I don't know if you've got the screen share on everything.
Yeah, it's all good stuff, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, well, it is a blog by Zaid Fadel. Now, he's a Syrian guy. He's in America, but he comes from the area where all the trouble's going on. He's still got a lot of relatives out there who feed him a lot of information. And it's a good little blog because it's one of the few that I occasionally look at to get some idea what's going on. I've been following it a few times, and he's normally come out with quite a bit of news that's turned out to be then put onto RT and the rest of the stuff a week or two later, or maybe a day or so. So his information is quite good, and it's quite extensive about what he talks about, to the point where, if I go back to the home page here, everyone's looking at that headline there. If I go back to his home page, which takes a long time to load for some reason, this site, you can go down his stuff here. Now, this particular article he done yesterday, if it'll load up. Come on, very slow. This guy is, yeah, here we go. It's about an incident in one of the villages yesterday. It's called Waterloo in Derry. Army smashes rats after, they call them that, after blasting their ranks. 48 rodents dead, which is what he calls ISIL and what's that mixed state now, and the rest of them. But he goes down there to report on what actually happened, how it went about, but he not only says what happens, he's got the names of the rats or rodents, he calls the ISIS individuals that are identified afterwards, and he's got all the names of these people that were ISIS or al-Nusra or many of the other factions that are fighting under the Islamic State flag. So he's quite in depth with his articles, and I thought it was worth mentioning, whether you guys wanted to follow that particular site in the future. It's called SyrianPerspective.com. It's by this chap ZF Down. I've heard him speak a couple of times on a few radio shows, not Red Ice, another one or two, but anyway, on YouTube, and it seems quite up to pace on things that are happening on the ground that you don't normally pick up on any other news channels or anything, and it's quite up to date. So there we go. Another one would be not that one. We don't want that, and we certainly don't want Google again. Well, I think I've lost it now. Maybe another time. But what we'll do, PJ, is we'll go to this one here, which is the little video you want me to play about the House of Commons debate stroke vote on Wednesday to whether to bomb Syria, and what?
Well, you still wanted
comedy of what he terms as terrorist sympathisers, which is basically quite comical when you think about it. Up to you, PJ.
Well, I was just going to say, it means no difference whether you play it or not to me, because, you know, I don't sympathise with people like David Cameron, so you can call me terrorist sympathiser as much as you want.
Now, do you want to explain that? Because some people might not quite get that.
Well, it's for those that probably would quite get that.
It depends on which way you look at it, doesn't it? But do you want me to play it?
Yeah, go for it. Start it.
I don't know.
I thank the Prime Minister for giving way, and he is right in his opening statement to say how important it is to respect opinion on all sides of this House. So will you apologise for the remarks last night against right honourable friends on this side of the House?
Well, I couldn't be clearer in my opening remarks. I respect people who disagree. I respect the fact that governments of all colours have had to fight terrorism, and I respect we are all discussing here how to fight terrorism, not whether to fight terrorism for British people. Or do we sit back and wait for them to attack us? I give way to the honourable member.
For giving way, it would be helpful if he could retract his inappropriate comment from last night. But will he be reassured that no one on this side of the House will make a decision based on any such remarks, nor will we be threatened into from doing what we believe is the right thing, whether those threats come from online activists or indeed from our own dispatch box.
Completely agree with the honourable gentleman. Everyone in this House should make up their mind on the arguments in this House. And there is honour in voting for, there is honour in voting against. That is the way this House should operate, and that is why I wanted to be absolutely clear at the start of my sentence. This is about how we fight terrorism, not whether we fight terrorism.
I've examined that list very carefully. I cannot identify a single terrorist sympathiser among that list. Will he now apologise for his deeply insulting remarks?
I've made very clear, this is about how we fight terrorism, and there is honour in any vote that honourable members make.
I will be supporting him today. I do think, however, that he needs to apologise for the comments he made in relation to the Labour Party.
I'm very interested to hear what the Honourable Gentleman says about what name we should call Daesh. If we're talking about terminology, should he not take this opportunity to withdraw the remarks that he is calling those who will not be voting with him tonight a bunch of terrorist sympathisers? Because not only is that offensive, it is dangerous and it is untrue.
I've made my views clear about the importance of all of us fighting terrorism, and I think it's time to move on. So let me turn...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. We all on these benches share the Prime Minister's horror for Daesh and its death cult and abhor terrorism. Will he take this further opportunity to identify which members of these benches he regards as terrorist sympathisers?
Yeah. Everyone in this House can speak for themselves, but what I'm saying is when it comes to the risks of military action, the risks of inaction are far greater than the risks.
I thank the Prime Minister for giving way, and he is right in his opening.
There we go. Well, I think...
Do we have the video, Stav, with the Jon Snow?
We don't.
Are you able just to play that brief little bit? Because this is quite important, I think, to... I was just going to say that with a vote turning out 175 more that voted for it than against it, it's obvious that the terrorist sympathisers won the vote. But let me see if I can find. Well, let me go back here for a moment. I'll turn this off here, and you can.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very important for the American people to understand this political posture is happening in your country as well as in ours. It's ridiculous. It's shameful.
Well, I'll put it up to you. I'm going to try and find this video.
Well, you've not seen anything yet whilst I was finding this video. It's going to bring us into his final topics for this talk, and then we'll leave it open for any further comments from either yourself, Ron, or Jeana.
I think Ron's gone for a smoke.
I'm still here. I'm still here, boys and girls.
Alright, well, while Stav finds that, let me just show you something else, because it sort of fits into what we're going to do. So, just bear with me one moment. Alright, you should be able to see my screen, yeah? This is a Facebook post that me and Stav spotted either yesterday or day before. And this is a Saudi prince, Abu Labare Katane, 51 years old. It says his new bride, Hind Nawaf, who was only 6 years old, exchanged vows in Saudi Arabia last week. Report says it was a beautiful ceremony. In completely unrelated news, Saudi Arabia was elected the chair of the United Nations Human Rights Council in September. So, let's see what David Cameron's, what his thoughts are with Saudis and dealing with them.
Right, I don't know if you've got my screen share on page, have you?
No, you've not started it.
Okay, right. It's hanging up a bit, but We'll get there in a minute. This is off the cuff tonight, as they say. He doesn't want to play. Everything's jamming up. I think the cache is getting full anyway. I'll go into this. What should I go right into where he says the question, or because it's quite a long interview? But let's have a look.
Yeah, if you can.
I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but not exactly the same as they know.
Okay, let's get along here a bit.
I think last time they took too much of a light out of the rest of the campaign. Who takes it?
I think it's about here.
Get together, work out what it is you want to do. We're going to have to join in, and I'm sure we'll come up with something. Now, UKIP's one problem, but winning voters might be another. Some people say that you're still not really...
Bear with me, because this is...
feminist. That's what you mean by feminist. Yes, I'm a feminist. It's just coming to an end, or has come to an end. You've been watching the box set. Now, what is it about Breaking Bad that's so endearing to the audience? What is happening is...
You're on the wrong video, Stav.
And...
Which one is it?
That's not the one. That's the 1st of October 2013. That's way old. Yeah.
Sorry.
Apologies for that, guys.
This one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What Teresa was making it.
Let me see if I can get this along. Okay, I think it starts from around about here. Come on, load up.
Any of the extremists, that is not in our interest. Frankly, we need to do more to back the legitimacy. I don't accept that all opponents who have said are either there are thousands of people who want a peaceful, democratic, diverse Syria. That's who we back.
Now, you've been asked to intercede with the Saudis over the 17-year-old boy who was arrested when he was 14 and who faces execution and crucifixion. Have you?
Well, we have raised this as a government, yes.
Have you personally?
No, the Foreign Secretary has raised this. Our embassy has raised this. We raised this in the proper way. I'll look to see if there's an opportunity for me to raise it as well. But we oppose the death penalty anywhere and everywhere, and we make that clear in all our international contacts.
But that's curious, because we, in November, did a deal with the Saudis that we would back them joining the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, providing they backed us. Now, this sounds a bit squalid for one of the most human rights abusing regimes on earth.
But Saudi Arabia is a member of the United Nations, but we completely disagree with
them. Why did you want them inside the human rights?
Well, we completely disagree with them about the punishment routines, about the death penalty, about those issues.
Well, why did we do this deal then? I mean, they're not the right sort of people to do any sort of a deal on human rights.
Well, we totally oppose their record in that area.
Why did we do it?
Well, I say we totally oppose that.
No, but why did we do it?
Well, that's my answer.
Well, that isn't an answer, is it? I mean, we had done a horrid deal. It was very well exposed in the Financial Times.
We have a relationship with Saudi Arabia. If you want to know why, I'll tell you why. It's because we receive from them important intelligence and security information that keep us safe. I could come on your program, John. Let me just give you an example. Yes,
I'll be sure that they are not actually. Some elements of them, within the clerics and elsewhere, the one...
There's the important bit. Am I right, PJ?
Yeah, that's the one.
Punishment routines about
we'll
the
just listen to it again.
Why did we do this deal then? I mean, they're not the right sort of people to do any sort of a deal on human rights.
Well, we totally oppose their record in that area.
Why did we do it?
Well, I say we totally oppose that.
No, but why did we do it?
Well, that's my answer.
Well, that isn't an answer, is it? I mean, we had done a horrid deal. It was very well exposed in the Financial Times.
We have a relationship with Saudi Arabia. If you want to know why, I'll tell you why. It's because we receive from them important intelligence and security information that keep us safe. I could come on.
There you go. So that's what you're talking about, PJ.
Well, you asked me to, explain why I don't sympathise with people like David Cameron. So, do you need to ask me that question again?
So you're not a terrorist sympathiser then?
Nope.
Right, okay. That's what it's about, isn't it? Who's the terrorists? Come on, who are the terrorists here? You've got the Prime Minister doing a deal with the Saudi Arabians, right? Because they give us important information, and it doesn't matter what they do to people.
Nope, they can marry 6-year-old girls. That's completely fine.
And they can chop off 200 people's heads in a public execution every year.
And they can cause a false stampede.
So there we are, PJ. I'm going to get off the screen share. I think that's enough of that. So that's what PJ was on about when the question was raised that was he to retract what he said the day before about terrorist sympathisers. So there we go. Interesting. I'm pretty much done there, PJ. I don't know if Jeana wants to bring up anything else aside the pond. We're all in this together. Yeah. But I don't know whether there's anything you wanted to bring in before we close it tonight, Jeana.
Well, I was just going to say I have a background in behavioral sciences, and you can just watch his body language and the way he's trying to shut down the question. Also, his eyes, how they glazed over when you ran it back in the second time. You know, folks can pause that and go back and look, but you can see his eyes glaze over. He's an unconscious human being. He's not.
That's
yeah.
the snake.
He's unconscious. He's just a puppet. And he's just a puppet for corporate master. The same corporate master that's puppetizing over here is running the puppets over there. And it's a sad thing, but it's a commentary on the world that we live in. And I think that, you know, continuing the shows like you guys are doing and having the conversations and pointing out and pulling all these bits of information together in one place where someone can come to look at and to understand and kind of digest is important. But anybody can watch the body language and see what a liar. He's just a liar. And so I think that is why I always say face-to-face and on the ground, role modeling, talking to your neighbor, if you're at the market or at the store or at the gas pump, you know, getting your petrol or whatever. We just have to role model this being of compassion, and I don't know if you want to call that being a sympathizer, but I would sympathize with humanity at this point.
Well, humanity is something that these people lack severely. And like you say, you've only got to look in their eyes. I actually had a conversation with somebody the other day, and it was about one of these top CEO bankers, and it was a picture of him, and you could just, looking at his eyes, it's just a picture, still picture of him, and you just saw nothing in those eyes. They were like staring into a great white shark's eyes, you know, and that's basically, that's what they all look like. They all look like that. I must admit, you know, it's something that body language and that sort of thing I'm only just sort of taking on now and understanding. It's something I haven't studied, but it's pretty obvious when you see these people speak. So, yeah, that's
Would you say he's one of the new Majestics? And will he stay the course? I think they got a crack up, hopefully. Well,
look at those.
Oh, yeah. They'll stay the course, honey. They've been handpicked. Don't forget.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
they've already got a new heart laid out for him, I think.
Well, we could show you some images of, they call him the Chancellor of the Exchequer here, and it's his best buddy. And you want to see some body language and movements and eye movements. I think he comes straight out of the WC, straight into the House of Commons. And you can, I'm sure if you look carefully enough, well, you don't even have to look carefully enough, it looks like he's been eating ice cream under his nose. So that's the sort of people that...
Andy, well, there's some pictures going about, you know, because he used to visit a certain madam, you know, where... And there's a picture of him trying to dance.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so ridiculous. It's like, And I thought I couldn't dance, man.
Yes, I can't think of her name. She's a black girl, isn't she? She won an escort.
Yeah, I think she had her arrested, didn't she?
Yeah, well, she used to call Little George, didn't she? Used to call him Little Georgie.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So, well, thanks for reminding me of that one, PJ. I hadn't pulled that one up, so that was a good one to show. So, terrorist sympathisers. Actually, there was one going around on Facebook today. This guy had David Cameron with a big keyboard with his hands on it, and it said terrorist sympathiser.
I think the name you're looking for is Natalie Rowe.
That's the one.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I'll share this article while I'm here. There you go. You see that all right? I licked George Osborne's ear, my boyfriend saw, and they started fighting.
I actually haven't got a picture of that up at the moment. I don't know.
It didn't come up, PJ. It's flash. No, nothing there, man.
So we try again.
Oh, no.
How about now?
No, I haven't got it. Have you got it, Ron?
Nah.
No, it's
How
not.
about Jeana?
Well, never mind. We get the picture, even though we can't see it. Okay. Well, I'll leave it for you to wrap up, PJ. I'd just like to say thanks for coming on, Ron. And great stuff.
That's all right.
And I you want to do it again? Now you've managed to get into the Google account you already had.
Yeah, now join the club. Yeah.
And great thanks to you, Jeana, for coming in. And we'll hopefully you'll want to do it again with us. It's all unscripted. We like to keep it like that. Otherwise, it's not very really. You know, like some of these alternative networks, media, whatever you want to call them, I'm not going to knock them because everybody's got to do what they've got to do. But it all seems very much like along the lines of the commercial type side of scripting. But there you go. That's just what I think. But anyway, thanks for coming in, Jeana.
You're so welcome, and I appreciate you pulling all the information together and linking references and things for people to research, because I'm definitely going to some of the links that you shared today. Thank you.
You're welcome. PJ?
Yeah, thanks, Stav, for doing most of the hosting tonight, and Ron for joining. Likewise, Jeana. It's always helpful if anybody's looking to, perhaps come on one time. We do it every Sunday, 9 PM GMT. Just send us an email.
Yes, thanks for having me on.
No worries. Cheers, Ron. Bye, Jeana.
Yes, good day. Good night to you guys. Bye-bye.